Good evening, mate. How are you?
I'm very well, mate. I'm very well. How are you?
I'm all good. I'm all good. Thank you for coming on. So, another episode of the Diving Deep podcast. And I'm really looking forward to this one, actually, because it's been pretty exciting time for you over this last sort of few months, few weeks. So, we'll get into that. Yeah, thank you for coming on, firstly.
Oh, thanks for having me on, mate. Yeah, I watched the first one last week. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's basically the whole idea behind it is just about speaking to people within different areas of the music industry and talking about their journey, really, because I think what we put on social media isn't always the whole story, is it? Because it's you just can't really disclose the whole journey on there that easily.
No, you're right. Yeah, you are right.
So I want to give the listeners and whoever comes across this a bit of an intro about you. So No-e is a Swansea-based DJ and producer. Started DJing pretty much in the early 2000s, mainly in the garage scene. Sort of primarily moved across to hip hop from there because obviously garage got a little bit commercial and sort of drifted away. Held down various residencies in Swansea and started producing around about 2 years ago when it comes to house music. So is that a fairly good short overview, mate?
Yeah, nailed it, mate. Nailed it. That's exactly it.
So where I want to start from is sort of like, I suppose, let's talk about, obviously it looks like you really started DJing, like I said, in the garage scene. So let's start from there, sort of like, how did it all start from you, the whole DJing and getting into that sort of scene?
Just from clubbing originally, I suppose. Like everybody, I enjoyed clubbing. But there was something about garage music, especially back then, that drew me. And then I remember, I can't remember where I was, but I heard a certain track, which was Jameson did a white label. He did a remix of Whitney Houston Fine, which is still sort of in my top 3 favorite songs of all time. And I heard it. I saw somebody play it. And I thought, I've just got to do it. I've got to do that. And then I think I bought a set of decks and a mixer the week after. I think it was a set of Newmark belt drives. I think it was.
That's exactly what I started on.
If I remember rightly, to start off with, which was a brilliant thing to start off on because they would never stay in time. They were forever going at different speeds. But I think you can't learn really on anything better. Because you're constantly having to listen and put it back in time all the time. And I'm really thankful for, obviously I moved on to 1210s or whatever then, like everybody does. But I'm really thankful for those Newmark belt drives.
Yeah, mate, I remember it well. It's exactly this, and a very similar thing. Brought like a DJ package in the back of like DJ Mag, and it was Newmarks, and they were belt driven, and they weren't too bad. I mean, like the power of the platter and that wasn't too bad because like the early direct drive ones that weren't Technics, you used to push them, and they used to go. It was almost harder, but I don't know if you experienced this after a little while with the belt drive ones. Obviously, the belt would stretch, and you'd be listening to it, and you'd be like, something doesn't sound right about this record, it'd be going like, well, like it would just, but no, you're absolutely right. Like it really, from a really starting off point of view, it really taught you actually the fact that, having to adjust the record, speed it up and that. I mean, like on today's sort of equipment, you just don't have to really do it. You do have to adjust it and stuff like that, but it's not quite the same as belt drive decks.
No, it's so easy now. Like I'm not saying, is this, there's differences now. You didn't have, like I bought a Pioneer mixer then when I bought which had a couple of effects on it, but you didn't have the effects and the loops and everything that you've got now. So, you can be a lot more creative with it now.
Did you find that you had to know your records a lot better back then? Because
you had to.
No loop function.
Yeah, you can't. There's no loop function. You can't set cue points or anything. You know what I mean? So you had to know your songs. You had to know your vinyl.
or you get both of those vocals crashing in together and be like, oh no, you know, like you know. But yeah, no. So yeah, the garage scene, I remember well, and a lot of people that I've had on here so far, they talk about that being one of their biggest influences, sort of like in the, like, wow, at the very early start, sort of like the mid-90s, but then it carried on, didn't it, to like the late 90s and progressively got more commercial, I suppose, and then it lost its way a bit, didn't it?
Yeah, it went more commercial, and then it went from being more commercial to a lot harder and a lot sort of MC driven.
Yeah.
And what then happens is you lose the interest of the ladies.
Yeah.
And that's the kiss of death for any scene or any night is, you know, if the ladies stop going, if the ladies stop going, you've had it. You know? So, you know, and I think it ran its course, but for me, sort of, I was always a hip hop fan from sort of 10 or 11 when I first got into music. I was always a hip hop fan, hip hop R&B fan, and then sort of garage was almost fast hip hop and R&B, if you know what I mean. And a lot of influences from. I know you had sort of where it started was obviously a bit more housey, you know, but then when it became two-step and became UK garage, there was a lot more influences from hip hop and R&B. I think that's what sort of drew me to it originally.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, you're absolutely right, because when it first came, it was more like US garage, wasn't it? Which was absolutely more housey. And then when the UK stuff took over and it became more urban and stuff like that, you're right, it was a different sound, wasn't it? You know, to like the early Todd Edwards stuff and the Masters at Work stuff. So so talk to me about, so before house music, before garage, before anything like that, obviously you talked about hip hop. So what would you class as your sort of really early first musical influences that you can sort of remember?
The first album I ever heard that really got me, because I was football when I was young. I wasn't interested in anything else really other than football. And then one of my mates played me Straight Outta Compton NWA album, and that was it then. That was it. And then, you just all my friends were into it. So the way I grew up, it was, everything was hip hop out. It still is now to a certain degree. Not in Swansea where I live now, but I'm from Newport, which is about 50 miles down the road. And that is very, very predominantly sort of a hip hop and R&B sort of place. But yeah, definitely, it was that NWA album was the first thing. And really then everything, then Eric B and Rakim, like Rakim is my favorite, best rapper there is for me. Then you've got, and then people like Big Daddy Kane, who I loved. And that was, that NWA album was the first album that really got me interested in music.
And that was like, off the top of my head, that was it like 89 or 90, or was it a little bit before that? I just forget.
It would have been about, well, I left school in 92, so I'd have been, it'd have been about, I would guess 87, 88, something like that.
I thought it was the late 80s.
Guess it's around there.
At that point, were you, I suppose you weren't buying music on CD, it would have been vinyl at that stage, I'm assuming.
The first record I ever bought on vinyl was Shabba Ranks Golden Touch. Which was way before his sort of Mr. Loverman stuff, and then he went to the commercials way before that. But that was a brilliant album. And then loads of stuff. Lots of Raga Twins stuff, Shut Up and Dance stuff I've still got. Lots of 12-inch. You know, we had quite a good record shop in Newport, and then we had Cardiff was only up the road. We'd go into Cardiff every sort of Saturday morning and we'd buy stuff in there. And I've been buying vinyl ever since. There's nothing quite like it.
No, I've spoken about it to quite a few of the guests that I've had on that it can't be replicated, can it? You know, with anything digital, you know, there's no two ways about it. And I don't want to sound like a repetitive person, but there is something about the experience of going to buy vinyl and walking out with it in your hands, and the record shop and the atmosphere that the people you meet. You know, I wish it was still the way it is, but I get that today it just, like everything, it had its time, didn't it? And now it's, you know, for even from a DJing perspective, it's so much more efficient, not having to carry all that vinyl around. But
yeah, when I first started, you know, me and my best mate, we DJ together, and we'd play sort of 6-hour sets, and you wouldn't be able to move in the DJ box, you know, because we'd all have sort of 5 record bags each. There'd be like 10 record bags everywhere, you know. But you needed it. You needed it.
The mess at the end of the night when you'd look at your records and be like, shit, you know, like, I mean, they're all in the wrong sleeves. Some people are quite anal about it. They'd really like take care, but actually, for the most part, especially if you're having a drink or whatever you were doing, and you were getting into it, and you were in, your records never went back in the same place, did they? And it was just like, it was could turn into a bit of a mess in there.
They didn't, and sort of a lot of the time, sort of when I finished playing garage and I was playing sort of R&B and hip hop, still on vinyl for quite a while before we moved over to Serato. With those songs, most of them are only 3 minutes long. They're not a 6 minute. They're not a 6 minute extended version. So you've got, by the time you've thrown it on, somebody's talking to you, and then you look at the record. I better grab another one. You know.
But it's right, isn't it? I mean, like, if I think about like party DJs or wedding DJs back in the day, and when obviously people are asking for requests and that, how much music those people would have had to have brought along with them. It must have been, like you say, like bags upon boxes, because obviously if people are coming up and going like, have you got this? You know, if you say no every time, they're going to be like, this person's shit, you know, like, because in that sort of environment, they want to hear music they know. It must have been a nightmare, you know,
it must have been. It must have been. But no, it's still, and I kept with Serato for such a long time, just because you could, even though it was on a laptop and we were playing MP3s or whatever, you still did it on vinyl.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, so I sort of kept on that for as long as I possibly could. I still got it upstairs.
Yeah.
So I moved on to record box now. You've got to really, but I still love it. There's nothing, like you said, there's nothing like it. Like we used to, being from Swansea, there was a couple of good record shops, but the garage, especially in the garage time, the real garage scene was London, Soho. So we'd go up sort of once a month, but what we'd do is we'd ring every Tuesday or Wednesday, and they play a song. They got to know us after a bit, and they'd be like, yeah, we've got this one for you. They play us music down the phone, and then they'd send it, and then you'd be like, you'd rush home from work on Thursday, and then it'd be there, and there's just no feeling like it, unpacking the envelope and chucking it on, and then we'd play on Thursday night. Yeah. So we'd go straight, we'd grab the records, and we go straight out and play them. Yeah. And really, nothing quite like it.
No, until they get worn out or they warp, then I've got a few that, because I ended up leaving them in my parents' loft. I thought they'd be okay, and when I pulled them out, they were all completely warped, because obviously the elements, sadly, even though they were in boxes, I ended up just getting to them a bit. But yeah, that I've got to say, when I pulled them out and looked at them, I was like, oh no, it's like, it's they're memories, aren't they? They're like antiques. But
of course they are.
From a DJing perspective, how would you describe your vibe, your style from a producer's perspective? So a bit of a joint thing, really. How would you describe it?
Like from a producer, I don't know, to be honest with you. I don't know how I'd describe it. I like what I like. Like it's very, I love a sample, and I love, like, production wise, like most of the music I've loved and grown up with is as use samples heavily. So I'm always sort of, you know, without even knowing it really, I'm sort of drawn to songs with samples in it, and I love it when people, you know, sample things and do it cleverly, or even when they can just pick a really short loop. Yeah, that sounds brilliant, and then they can make a whole song. Yeah, that's out of this just tiny loop. It's like, to me, it's genius. You know, that's genius how you can make a full song out of you know, just sort of a tiny little sample. So my productions are I don't you know, not every song I've done has got samples in it, but most of them have. And it's what I love sort of that looking through and trying to find that sort of little nugget of a sample. And like some of the best ones I found have been in like the weirdest songs that you'd never ever think of sort of sampling. So yeah, that I suppose. And like with house music and stuff, I like something which, like, to me has got a bit of soul to it. Whether that be in a vocal or whether it's in sort of the bass line or something. I just, like, I sort of know it when I hear it, if you know what I mean. And
you feel it,
to me, yeah. And that's what it is to me. I like it, you know, and I like things a bit raw. I'm not one, I don't like everything really clean and really precise, you know. And some people do, and some people do a brilliant job of it. Like I've done a project with Mac and Ward. We've done a collaboration, and we found some middle ground, because they are they're brilliant at what they do, and they're very, very precise, and everything is really thought out and sort of EQ'd to within it, you know, so it's perfect and clean and crisp, which is great. Which is great. It's great. It sounds brilliant. But for me, my sound is not that. You know what I mean? It's just a bit more blurred around the edges and a bit more, you know, sort of raw, I suppose. I just think it's just, and whether that comes from the love of, because I suppose that's the other difference between vinyl and sort of digital music and things, is you get that rumble, you get that sort of that little crackling, that noise in it, that warmth that I just sort of, you know, that I love. So whether it stems from that, I'm not sure. You know.
Yeah, it's really interesting actually, because 2 points that I can definitely resonate with me. The first one being about sampling. When I first started getting into house music, like you, in like the late 90s, well, from a house perspective, like the first sort of house music that I started here was about 1997, 98. And then getting into like the later 90s, that most of it was sampled. It was all sampled off old disco records and everything like that. And, you know, like that at the time, like Armand van Helden, all of his big stuff was sample based, you know, all of it, you know, and it was a big thing, you know. That is what really house music was mostly built on, wasn't it? You know, sampling, it's a big part of the culture. Whereas I've seen, and this is just my opinion of what I've seen it almost like starting to take a bit of a bad rap over the years. And I'm like, I don't get why, because at the end of the day, it's, for me, the only thing that matters is, does it sound good? Is it good? How it happens is totally up to you as a producer. But I don't know if you like came across this, and this is like, you know, when people use stuff out of sample packs and stuff like that. And I get, if it's very overused, I get it, you know, but actually there's nuggets to be had in sample packs, from sounds to vocals, stuff like that. You can't employ a vocalist all the time, you know, depending on what sort of scale of artist you are. And I see the fact that people sort of like, they really downbeat on the fact that that's from a sample pack, or that's just a sample. And like, to me, it's like, it's producer vanity, that just because you've not made every single aspect of it, then it can't be good. And for me, I don't get it. I just don't understand why it's a problem.
No, I'm with you. I'm totally with you. I don't think, well, the vocal from my biggest track to date, A-list came from a sample pack.
Yeah.
You know, that vocal comes from a sample pack. Yeah, I did something different with it, but I was trying to get it into a track for a while. And to be honest with you, a couple of people, I can't think of, I know Flash Mob for definite, and somebody else messaged me and said, God, I've been trying to get that vocal into something for ages.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
You know, everyone's different. Everyone makes music differently.
That's
you
right.
know, you'll always sort of, like you said, get that sort of snobbery. But to me, if it sounds all right, I'm happy. I don't. If somebody says to me, "Oh, that's out of a sample pack," I'll say, "Well,
yeah. So what?
You know,
you're not doing anything wrong.
I'm happy. No, I'm happy with how it sounds. So you know, you do you, and I'll do me.
Absolutely. I mean, that track that I put out, Anytime, that sort of lead bit was half a sample. I didn't like the other half of it, so I stole it. I actually had quite a few people messaging me saying, hang on a sec, I've used that in my track. And I was like, right, and mate, it's royalty free. Like, respectfully, that's good. You know, brilliant. Yeah. Well, they're like, well, I don't think you should use it. I'm like, mate, it's free. Anybody can use it. Anybody can use it after me. You know, that's just how it is. You know, I'm sorry, that's the life of, you know, certainly house music, that it's a sample. The interesting thing you said about a lot of music being too perfect, I completely agree with this. What I hear a lot is it's a lot of music now is so polished, it actually takes away the soul and attitude from it, because everything is so perfect. And it's like, for me, the first person I actually heard actually properly call this out, you come across, you will have, because you're from the garage era, Huxley.
Yeah.
He said it. He went, the problem is it, you know, house music was never designed to be perfect. It was meant to be a little bit imperfect. And like, as time's gone on with my own music, I don't know how you feel about it. Sometimes I think, oh, I'm not sure that sounds quite right, but I think that could be a good thing, you know. Maybe just leave it. Don't try and make it so perfect. But you're one of the only people that actually has ever said that to me, apart from listening to Huxley say it, because it's something that I hear all the time. Everything's so glittery.
Yeah. And like I said, it works for some people. Some people, you know, and that's what they want, and that's fine. It's, you know, it sounds great, and we're all different. But you know, sometimes I'll purposely leave, you know, because sometimes I'll be sampling old records, and I'll sort of get it in time, but then I'll purposely leave it a little bit loose. I won't go and sort of quantize every single slice of it. If you know what I mean. Just you know, I'll leave it a bit loose.
Give it a bit of character.
Yeah, you know, and people might not like it, and that's fair enough, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. But I think it comes from the music you're used to listening to. And yeah, like the original sort of hip hop and stuff I used to listen to, with the people who used to really like Eric and Rakim, like we talked to with Brian last week. Like sort of Eric was brilliant at sampling, but it was loose. It was raw. It was rough. You know what I mean? But that's what I like about it.
Well, here's an interesting one for you. So Armand van Helden, you know, his biggest track, you know, You Don't Even Know Me. Well, obviously the lead was a disco sample.
Yeah.
The drums were from, which I only found out recently, were originally from JD Plastic Dreams. He sampled the whole drums.
God,
that's the drums of that track, and then obviously just created like a bass line and a vocal. That was it. So over half the track was fully sampled, and think how big that became.
Oh yeah. Like I got to be fair. I think that's when he's brilliant at finding the samples. Armand van Helden. He's absolutely genius at it. I don't know, house music wise, you know, there's nobody better. Certainly nobody better. He's genius at finding the sample.
I think anybody growing up in like the late 90s and seeing him sort of like, even like his early stuff like Funk Phenomena and all that, as it kept going, I mean, mate, for me, he is still the main man.
Yeah, he's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
So I want to talk a little, I mean, normally I would ask people like, what's sort of like, what's your dream? And we will get onto that. But I want to talk about something that's just happened for you over this last few months, few weeks. Obviously, you've had a huge signing of one of your records to Hot Creations, which is, for people that don't know, is Jamie Jones's label. Track came out, I think it was about 2 or 3 weeks ago. Well, EP came out 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Yeah,
Called,
2 weeks. Yeah, just over 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, called A-Team. So, mate, talk to me about that, because it's, I mean, I'm so pleased for you, because that is an amazing thing and a very hard thing to achieve, to get your music signed by those top labels. So, mate,
yeah,
talk
it
to
is.
the listeners about it.
Yeah, especially so early. Like, I've only really been making music for sort of 2 years, probably.
Yeah.
But I'll be honest, it hasn't really sunk in yet. Still, you know, like I said to you earlier, it's sort of been played on Radio 1 now, sort of 4 times, which is crazy. It's you know, it's bonkers. But it's it's brilliant. Like, I do mentoring sessions with Shadow Child. I've spoken to you about these before, and the guy's a genius. Like, you know, he's helped me in so many different ways. And like for a while, I didn't really know what my sound was. I was making sort of disco house and stuff, which you know, I love disco house, but my sound has settled somewhere between disco house, tech house, and house. Really, is sort of sat somewhere in there, I would say. And you know, there wasn't anything. You know, he didn't sort of say, this is what I think you should do. This is not. This is this. But sort of, we're doing these sessions, and I'd make a track, and then I'd play it to him, and we'd have a chat about it, and we go through it. And then he'd say, "Oh, you should listen to what so and so's doing." You know, and then I'd go away and have a listen and think, and I might pick up a couple of little things I thought that I liked about that, and then he'd put me on to somebody else, and then eventually, you know, sort of I've come to a sound, that I'm happy with, and I think, you know, is me. So he was originally going to sign these tracks to Food, to his label, because I don't had, but I had a track out on Food previously, which was on a VA. It was on a Various Artists EP, and Jamie Jones had picked it out of all the tracks as his favourite, and I think he played it a few times. So Simon said, "Look, I'd love to sign these tracks, but I think Jamie might like them. So I'm going to send them over to Jamie." You know, like, to me, the fact that he thought they were good enough to send to Jamie, I was happy with. But then when Jamie sort of sent them back and said, "I've played this out a few times now, it's great. You know, we want to sign it." It was just bonkers. It was. And then, you know, there was a lull then. Like, I made these tracks probably about 4 or 5 months ago, but obviously, you know, with somebody like Hot Creations, they've got a long schedule that's done well in advance. So it took a while for them to come out. It's been bonkers. The last 3 or 4 weeks has just been non-stop.
It's amazing to see, you know, and it should be really good inspiration for hopefully anybody coming to touch with this, that actually, if you just stick at it and you do you know, like you say, you sort of reach this place where you feel like you've sort of landed on what you think is your sound, then the things can happen. You know, it can go the way that you want it to.
I think that's very important. What you just said then is just to do you. Like, don't try and sound like anyone. Like, when I did these tracks, I wasn't thinking like of Hot Creations. If I obviously I buy Hot Creation songs. I like lots of the things that are on Hot Creations, but I would never probably, if I didn't listen to my songs and think, "Oh, they fit with Hot Creations." I didn't think they fitted on the label, if I was honest. But I think that's the important thing, though, is that you're not trying to sound like a label sound. You know, I think you've got to do the music you want to do, and if they like it, they like it. If they don't, they don't. But I think, you know, the fact that it's not trying to sound like anybody else, is a big thing, really. I think it's, you know.
Yeah, it's, I mean, in today's day and age, I think it's very hard to be truly original, because certainly in house music, there's so much, you know, over the last sort of like 30 odd years that's been put out there. At the end of the day, you're gonna probably end up sounding like somebody, but like you say, don't go with the intention of that. Just do what you like, you know. And with myself, I've said this to others, like for me, I just look back on all the records I'd liked over the years, and they were generally what I class as like classic house records. So I was like, well, they're all the ones that have really had like an impact on me. So I suppose that's really the line that I'm probably going to end up going down. And it naturally just ended up going down that line, because it'll find you, won't it? It just ends up finding, you know, you don't have to find it. If you just keep doing it, it will happen. So what's next from you then, mate?
Well, I've got a track coming out on Food the beginning of December.
Yep.
So I've got that. I've got a couple of things signed for sort of early next year as well. So it's just sort of, I've had sort of the last 3 weeks off producing because I've had so many other things to do, but it's just head down now.
Making music.
And going back to what I love. I've got a few shows to do locally and stuff soon, which would be good, because I DJed for so long, and then I sort of took a few years off then while my children were sort of younger, and I wanted to get into producing, and I sort of wanted to get away from although I loved being a resident, I loved it, and it taught me, you know, it teaches you invaluable sort of skills and lessons as a DJ.
Definitely.
You know, sort of playing, you know, for 6 hours, and, you know, the crowds coming and going and coming and going, and you know, but I wanted to sort of move away from that, and just sort of, just sort of try and get booked to play not only my music, but my type of music.
Yes.
So that's what I'm concentrating on now, really. But yeah, just going back to making more and more music.
Yeah, mate, I think it's going to be an exciting time for you, you know, going forward. I think the Hot Creations thing is hopefully will be the first step to other good things, you know. But no, it's really exciting, mate. So I want to ask you, you've been in the industry quite a long time. Obviously, I know you said you took a little bit of time off DJing, but you've been at it quite a while in respect of DJing and what have you. What are 3 pieces of advice you could offer to either new people coming into the industry, or, you know, just anybody from what you've learned and experienced over the years?
Oh, that's tough. DJ wise is tough, I think, because there's so, like, sort of in the resident DJ world is tough, because like when I started, there weren't that many DJs. Now there's, you know, everybody's a DJ. You know, and so it's hard to break in. It's hard to break in, I think, now, or it's harder to break in than it was then. But sort of production wise, you know, because I haven't been doing it that long, I've been given quite a bit of really good advice that sort of stuck with me. Just trying to pick a few now. Like, one of the first things I was taught very early on was advised very early on, was to finish every track, which is what I do, even if I don't like it. I don't like it, you know what I mean? I finish everything, and that, you know, is good practice. One is good practice, if nothing else. 2, what I've done often is, you know, I'll finish it. I won't like it. I'll put it to one side, and then I'll make another track. I'll like that. I'll think, oh, hang on, the bass I did in that song would sound good in this, you know, or the hi-hat I did, or the, you know, whatever. So then I might just go in, grab that, put it in, you know what I mean? It's good. It's all good practice, I think. I think it's good. So I've always been in the habit of finishing songs. So I'm not somebody that has a load of unfinished things sort of on my hard drive. So there's that. also, which is a similar sort of advice, but I was also told never leave your project as just a loop, which I never do either. I might have only come up with an 8-bar, a 16-bar loop in the time, and that I'm really happy with, but I will always, before I shut my computer down, I will always arrange it into a song, which I might completely change tomorrow, but it just means when I open it up, when I'm going back to it, I'm going back to a track, not a loop.
It's a loop, yeah.
So I don't get stuck in that sort of loop thing.
Yeah, agree with that.
So that was a great bit of advice that I use all the time. And another one I would say is don't be scared to use a reference track, which I do often. I listen to a lot of music. I listen to a lot of new music. And if I like something, I'll be like, right, why do I like that? I think, I like the arrangement on that, or I like, so I'll bring it in to my door, and then I'll arrange my track similar. It won't always be the same, or I'll listen to something and think, right, I like the way he's done the drums there. So I'll listen to it, and then I'll do my drum. They never sound the same. It's not copying because they never end up the same. I'm using different samples. I'm using,
it's not possible, is it?
No, it's not possible. It's not possible, but yeah, I think don't be scared to do that. I think sort of house music, especially from its beginning, has been copying bits from or sampling, or I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
You've nailed it, mate. I mean, there's actually a book, I don't know if you've ever come across it, it's called Steal Like an Artist.
No, I haven't.
It basically says exactly that, what you're describing, and the things that you're saying, I think can really help like really new producers, because now this is a bit of a disclaimer on this one, because everybody's got a slightly different way of being creative. Now, some people have the ability to go in the studio and they just say, I just jam, and it just happens. I am not like that.
Neither am I.
I'm not like that one bit.
No.
Most of my musical influences come from, like you say, listening to other records, and I think I like that. That's up my street. I either like something about the way it sounds, I like the vocal, I like the lead sound, and I think, right, exactly the same thing. Go and drag it into your whatever software you use, and say, right, let's have a proper listen to what makes this record good. How is the person introducing the vocals? What's the breakdown like? And I'm exactly the same, mate. And then I'll go and try and almost like put my stamp on recreating that. So like, you're absolutely right. Look at their arrangement. Why does it work? And like you say, it's impossible. Your track is never going to sound like theirs, because different sounds. Your vocal, you might not be able to get it to sit exactly the same way theirs does. So it's going to, but the reality is that I think it's a massive compliment. That you like their record that much. But I think you're bang on right. I hear so many producers that talk about getting stuck in loops. And the reason they're getting stuck in loops, in my opinion, is because they're not referencing anything. No. Unless some people do have the ability to, they can go with their own intuition, but I think for a lot of people that's really hard.
Yeah. Especially if, I think when you've DJ'd a lot, then you sort of know, arrangement wise, like, don't get me wrong, I still, sort of fight around with my arrangements. It's probably the one thing I fight with all the time, is which way I'm going to arrange it, if you know what I mean. But I think you get, once you've DJ'd a lot, you get an idea of how you'd want to mix it yourself. And then, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But yeah, I, like in all my sort of project files, whatever I've got on, I've always got a reference track. And if you played my track and then just played the reference track, you'd never guess that because they're completely different. You'd never think, oh, that sounds like that, because it doesn't sound like it. It's just, it might be, I like the call and response somebody has done in a vocal. So then I'll listen to that, but then I might use a string and a vocal or something else to get a similar call and response, but just for completely different things. You know what I mean? It's just
the thing is that when we produce, we don't just listen, we see, you know, because we're making it. And you're right, I've sat there and thought, this is like a carbon copy of said person's arrangement, and you think maybe it's a little bit too close, but that's because you're seeing it. Actually, from a listener's perspective, they would never know, they wouldn't be going, hang on a sec, like, this is just like my arrangement. It's different sounds, different slight differences. It's basically, it is almost impossible unless you have their sounds to make their track. And you probably even struggle to do it even with their sounds. And finishing every track, I think, is a huge one. And I'm a big believer, mate. I finish every track regardless, because I just think, do you know what? I've even had experiences where I've got to the end of it and I thought, it's just okay at best. And I've left it and I've not listened to it for weeks, a month, or something like that. And I've come back to it and I've thought, actually, do you know what? Like, now I've not listened to it on loop 500 million times. I think this is all right, actually, and sometimes I'll go back into it and think, well, if I just did this and just did that to it, maybe it's not half bad. And the other thing to realize is the fact that not every track needs to be a stormer. Actually, if you can release 2 fairly solid tracks as an EP, and you cannot think that every track you make is going to be like your trailblazer, because it's just not possible, is it?
Not possible. And you need B-sides, or you know what I mean. You can't. It's almost, and I don't even think, but if you've got like 2 or 3 real stomping, real big tracks, it's almost a waste to release the 3 of them together.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I do.
So, not that I'm saying, I'm happy with everything I've released, but I think, there's nothing wrong with
like when you put music out, it is a bit like bearing your soul, isn't it? Because you don't really know what people are going to think. And I've personally experienced this, mate, that sometimes you think, I like it, but I'm not sure. And the response you get is amazing from people. That's not for everybody, it's not everybody's going to like it, but you people that like what you do, they generally like it. And you think to yourself, well, do you know what? You can't be too critical of your own work all the time, I think, because it's a bad habit to get into.
No, I totally agree. I gotta be honest, I'm not somebody that I don't mind. I don't have a problem sharing things, and some people I know, they've sent me stuff that's amazing, and they've been sat on it for 4 or 5 years. That they just won't. It's like their baby, and they won't let anyone listen to it. Like I'm not like that. I'm more. I tend to send things before they're ready. I'll send it, and then I'll listen to it the next day and think, oh, I shouldn't have sent it yet. It's not quite ready. I'm the opposite. I need to think, sit on it. No, don't send it yet.
No, mate, I'm exactly. I think we're probably quite similar in respect of how we work. So what I'll do is I believe that through volume, you get your best work. Now everybody's a bit different, so what I'll do is I'll make like 12 tracks, and then I'll just keep making over the course of like 2 or 3 months or however long it is. I'll do like, because I don't know about you, I work quite quick, mate. I can actually make a track and finish it in like a week or so. Everybody's different, but I like to be quite efficient with it. I like to crack on, get it done, box it up, put it to one side, move on to the next. And once I'm in a good flow with it, then I'll sit back and listen, and I'll sit and listen to them, and I'll think, right, actually, like these 3, in my opinion, are better than those ones. And then I'll think, right, but I think if you get in, like, if producers get into the habit of really getting on a roll and making like 12 tracks, once you've got 12, if you send them to either somebody who's a close confidant that gets it, or, even just listen to yourself, you're gonna know what is the cream of the crop.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're absolutely right. Volume is everything. Like, I don't care who you are, how good a producer you are. Nobody makes a banger every single time they produce a song. It's impossible. It's impossible. You might make 20, 30, 40 tracks. A couple of them might be bangers, 10 of them might be all right, and 20 of them might be rubbish.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's, like you said, it's just volume. You know, it's about getting there, you know, because we've all done, like I'll sit there at the beginning, you know, and I go through sort of a cycle. You know, I'll be doing it, then I'll find a little nugget of a sample, and then I'll do it. I'll be like, this is great. This is brilliant. Bang. I'll make a track. I'll come back to it tomorrow. Oh, what was I thinking?
Mm-hmm.
Or, yeah. I mean, or yeah, no, it's okay. It's all right. And then, and then and then you go through that fine tuning stage when you've listened to the thing about 150 times. And then by the time of that, I'm thinking, I hate it. I hate it. I don't want to listen to it again. And then I come out the other end, and then I think, you know, like I said, by the end of the week, because I'm very similar to you. I tend to sit down on a Sunday and thrash out, try and find an idea, thrash out an idea, and then I'll dip in and out for hours or two here or there for the rest of the week then, and try and finish it by the Friday or the Saturday, and then start again on the Sunday. I tend to try and work that way. It doesn't always work. You know, it doesn't always work. But then by the end of the week, usually, I don't mind it so much again. But I go through those highs and lows. I love it at the beginning.
Yeah.
Then I generally hate it because my wife, because my wife often says it's just part of the process. Because I'll be like, oh, I hate it now. I hate it. Rubbish. and then a couple of days after, it's like, actually, no, that's not too bad. Not too bad. Yeah, no, I don't mind that. And then, like you said, sometimes I sit on it, then I listen to it back in a month or so's time and think, oh, actually,
it's all right.
It's all right.
Yeah. Like, I completely agree. I mean, I don't know about you. It gets to the stage where when you're making a track, once you've listened to it that many times over the course of that many days, your ears start to become immune and they start to fool you. And that's where, like, even doing like basic mix downs, if I've been working on the track and I'm getting right to the end of it, I'm like, there's no point in me trying to adjust things at this stage, because I've been now working on this track for 2.5, 3 hours. My ears haven't got a clue what's going on. It's best to just park it up and then go at it again fresh tomorrow.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Right, mate, we're bearing near the end, so it's been fantastic to talk to you, mate. I've got to say, somebody who we've been in touch for quite a while, haven't we? You know,
we have.
And amazing to see the things you're doing. I've got to say, you know, I'm a big supporter. Where can people find you?
I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. I don't use Facebook very much, but I'm on Instagram. No-e DJ Music. I'm on SoundCloud as well. I'll be honest with you, the socials is a newish thing to me. It came with the music, really.
Yeah.
I'm a bit old school, but I'm getting the hang of it. I'm getting the hang of Instagram now. So, you know, I'm all right with that. But yeah, you can catch me. You can find me on Instagram. I'm on Spotify and stuff as well, obviously.
Yeah, you're on all the main platforms, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm on all the main platforms. Yeah. I certainly am, mate.
It's been fantastic. So stay on the line once I press stop anyway.
Yeah.
All right, mate?
Yeah, we'll do. Yeah, good.